All she could see was endless ice and snow stretching as far as the eye could see. There was nothing, no trees, no grass, no faint columns of smoke hinting at civilization. There was only desolation. Captain Samantha Carter stood at the edge of the massive Antarctic ice cave, shivering against the biting cold. Deep below in the darkness, Colonel O'Neill lay badly injured and wrapped in a blanket, waiting for rescue that wasn't coming. They had dialed home, expecting the warmth of the SGC, but the Stargate had dropped them into a frozen hell instead. As Carter stared into the white void, the imaginary image of Ellie, the daughter she had buried years ago, stared back at her with a look of utter sadness. No, Carter whispered, chalk filling her voice. No! Site of the Beta Gate, Antarctica, few years ago. Captain Samantha Carter prepared to climb out of the massive ice cave into which she and Colonel O'Neill had been sent through the Stargate. Carter had no idea where they were. After all, they had dialed the SGC on Earth, not a frozen cave filled with snow-covered ground and walls of ice. She could only hope there was life somewhere on the surface, perhaps an alien civilization nearby. In most of their adventures through the gate, small towns were usually located near a stargate. Grabbing handholds and footholds formed by jagged ice and rock along the walls of the tunnel, Carter looked up at the opening overhead. Gathered clouds loomed in the sky above her. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself. It was going to be a long, slippery climb. Before attempting it, Carter glanced back into the cave. She radioed the badly injured O'Neill and informed him that she was heading to the surface to search for help. Once O'Neill acknowledged her with a pained whisper over the radio, Carter began climbing toward the surface. As she climbed, she could see the image of Ellie standing near the opening in her mind's eye. The little girl waved her over and called out to her, insisting she hurry. Stay with me, Ellie, Carter thought as she continued the climb. Even on this alien planet, please stay with me and the Colonel. It did not take long for her to reach the opening. Pulling herself out, she collapsed face first onto the snow-covered ground and breathed heavily. The climb had taken more out of her than she expected. After a moment, she slowly and carefully pushed herself to her feet. The first thing she noticed was the imaginary image of Ellie staring back at her with a look of utter sadness. Carter turned away from the little girl, devastation etched across her face. As she forced herself upright, she caught the sorrowful expression on Ellie's face once more before finally looking at her surroundings with wide, stunned eyes. No, Carter whispered, chalk filling her voice as she slowly turned in a circle. All she could see was endless ice and snow stretching as far as the eye could see. No! She cried. There was nothing. No trees, no grass, no distant village, no faint columns of smoke hinting at civilization. There was only desolation. Carter turned as Ellie's figure approached her, the little girl's feet leaving no trace in the snow. Ellie pointed toward the opening to the cave. Carter was exhausted, and part of her could hardly believe she was taking direction from a hallucination of her dead daughter. Still, she assumed Ellie was urging her to return below and stay with O'Neill. Nodding faintly, Carter trudged back toward the opening and slid down the steeply sloped wall. She hit the bottom hard. Groaning in pain, Carter slowly pushed herself up and made her way past the frozen DHD to the area a few meters from the Stargate, where O'Neill lay waiting. She informed him that they were trapped on an ice planet and that there was no sign of life anywhere on the surface. O'Neill, wrapped tightly in a blanket, merely nodded while shivering violently. In a last-ditch effort to keep him warm, Carter climbed beneath the blanket beside him and tried to preserve his body heat with her own. He's still seriously injured, Carter thought as her eyes slowly drifted shut from exhaustion, the pain from her fall, and the overwhelming stress of the day. Just before sleep claimed her completely, Carter thought she saw Ellie standing over them, smiling softly with her hands clasped behind her back. All Carter would think was, watch over us, Ellie. Wherever you are, watch over us. VIP room, SGC. That day, being stranded where the Beta Gate had been discovered, was only one of many days when Ellie had been with her. And Ellie she had hallucinated. And Ellie who could watch over her mother. Carter had even seen a hallucination of Ellie on Netu when SG-1, along with Tutokra, had gone to rescue General Jacob Carter and Selmac. In her heart, she had always believed that Ellie was in a good place after her death. However, Carter had never imagined that her daughter could have been stolen from her and placed with a family that abused her. The Major could never have believed that, years later, he would meet a young woman in a restaurant who would be attacked by a secret society, a girl who would be stabbed by members of that same society, and who would turn out to be the daughter she had long thought dead, a daughter she had buried. As she held that same girl who had been named Faith in her arms, Carter took a deep breath and tightened her embrace. 10 minutes had passed since Faith's scream had faded away. However, the young girl was still sobbing and occasionally shaking her head against Carter's shoulder. To Carter, it seemed as though Faith was trying to force back the memories of everything that had happened to her, every thought of what might have happened if she had not been stolen from her biological mother. My daughter, Carter murmured, her voice cracking. Just hearing those words made Faith cry harder against the officer's shoulder, her body trembling. All the while, Carter gently rubbed her back. She took a deep breath to steady her voice before continuing in fits and starts. I I know it'll take some time for you to trust me, but her attempt to steady herself failed. Carter found it difficult to speak as her mouth dried and tears flowed freely down her cheeks. She opened her mouth again, trying to continue, but no words came out. Instead, she tightened her hold on Faith and finally broke down sobbing. When I thought you died, Carter whispered between ragged breaths, my world ended. My, oh God. Neither of them could speak anymore. Each knew they should not even try. Instead, they simply cried in each other's arms. A mother and daughter finally reunited after 16 years. It was nearly another 10 minutes before the two of them finally loosened their hold on each other, neither daring to let go completely in case all of this was some terrible dream. Carter combed her fingers through Faith's soft, dyed blonde hair and took in the scent of vanilla shampoo before giving a small smile. I keep thinking this is a dream, Carter barely managed to whisper into Faith's ear. The Slayer nodded. Although it pained her, Carter slowly pulled away and looked at Faith's face. She gently wiped away the tears still falling from the Slayer's eyes and brushed the strands of hair covering them back behind her ears. You're so beautiful. Faith could only look away as she wiped at her eyes and shook her head. You are, Carter insisted before wiping her own eyes with the sleeve of her BDUs. She gently cupped Faith's face in her hands. You're more beautiful than I could ever dream of. I know this is going to take time for both of us to get used to, but know that you've always been in my heart. Faith could only stare at the woman in front of her, unable to open her mouth. She knew that if she tried to speak, she would start crying again. All she wanted was for this woman, her mother, her real mother, not to let go of her. A little more than 20 minutes ago, she had not believed what Carter was telling her. After going through the test results in the file, her mind and body had gone into shock. Then all Faith remembered was screaming and sobbing. Seconds later, Faith had realized that she was clinging to this woman, her mother, while crying into her shoulder. It felt as if a dam inside her had shattered. Everything she had gone through with her parents, from the crime to the abuse, was never supposed to happen. All of it had been done by people the council had knowingly placed her with. They had taken her from her mother, the woman whose eyes she was staring into now, and thrown her into hell. My mother, Faith thought to herself as she once again wiped away the tears flowing down her cheeks. Oh God, Cassie says she's smart. And look at me, a high school dropout, a screw up. Oh, Carter murmured, her eyes widening at Faith's expression. I know, I mean, I know it's not much, and I don't know what your parents. Wait, I'll be right back. No, Faith whispered as Carter started to rise from the bed. Faith knew every guard she had built around herself had come crashing down. But she did not care. She had seen the DNA evidence proving that this woman was her mother, her real mother, and Faith's senses were screaming that Carter would keep her safe. Don't go, Faith pleaded softly. I'll be right here, Carter promised before kissing Faith's cheek. I'll be right here. Carter then rose from the bed. Faith wiped her eyes as she watched the blonde officer stride toward the phone in the room. Carter brushed at her eyes with one hand while picking up the receiver with the other before dialing a number. She pressed the receiver to her ear. Janet? Carter asked, her voice breaking. She wiped at her eyes, coughed, and continued. Yeah, we're all right. Have you picked up the pizzas? Faith stared at Carter as she spoke into the phone, nodding at something Janet was saying on the other end. For her part, Faith turned her attention back to the paper, screaming in bold letters that she and Carter were a match. A maternal match. And DNA did not lie. Faith slowly lifted her gaze back to Carter. Good, Carter replied. So you just left. Alright, can you do me a favor? There's a bakery close by. You know, the one that has those really, really good cupcakes. Yeah, that's the one. I've got a standing order there that I was supposed to pick up, but I was in Sunnydale. Could you pick it up for me? Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, it's under my name. Thanks, Janet. Faith watched the major lower the phone before returning to the bed and sitting down directly across from her. That was the doctor? Faith asked softly. The major nodded. She's the one who told me about who you are to me, Carter explained as she moved closer and reached for Faith's hand. The slayer did not pull away. Gently squeezing her hand, Carter continued. Dr. Frasier, General Hammond, Colonel O'Neill, except for Cassie, know who you really are. They wanted me to tell you the truth. They didn't think it was their place. Faith nodded slowly. I get it. It was your birthday yesterday, Carter murmured. Faith's lips formed a small smile as she wiped at her eyes and sniffled. I always go over to your grave with a cupcake from a bakery in town, Carter continued. It's the greatest. And anyway, every birthday I'd put a candle in the middle of the cupcake and just stand there until the candle went out. I I don't know if you like vanilla frosting with sprinkles, but I do, Faith whispered as she glanced down at the bedsheet before looking back up at her mother. I do. I I mean my first watcher would bring cupcakes when I'd go sleighing and I like the vanilla ones. Faith trailed off. She was trying to ground herself, even if only for a short time. I know I named you Ellie, Carter gently interrupted. And I Faith watched the woman close her eyes, take a deep breath, and shake her head. It was as though she found it difficult to say the next few words. And and your parents, Carter finally managed, opening her eyes to meet Faith's gaze. They named you Faith. I don't know which you'd rather be called. And you named me after your mother, Faith whispered, reaching out slowly. She gently clasped Carter's hand where it rested on the bedsheet. My grandmother. Yes, Carter answered with a nod. If I could, Faith said between pauses. If I could, I'd like to have both names, but I'd like to have I mean, you're my Ellie Carter, Carter replied as tears trailed down Faith's cheeks. If I mean I'd like me too, Faith whispered as she leaned in and hugged Carter again while they cried together. They did not vocalize their thoughts, but both of them shared the same idea. You are my Ellie Faith Carter, the major murmured as she tightened her hold on her daughter before whispering into the Slayer's ear. Happy birthday, Ellie. Faith breathed hard as she tightened her grip on Carter. Several minutes passed before she finally pulled back and wiped her eyes and nose, then looked into the blue eyes staring back at her. I was hoping you could tell me about, my dad? Faith asked. In response, Carter gave a small nod and smiled. You have his eyes and hair, Carter explained, brushing her fingers along Faith's forehead, cheeks, and jaw. Though I would like to think you got everything else from me. Faith gave a small smile and nodded. She listened as Carter explained that he had stopped speaking to her after the pregnancy. Eventually, they lost touch with each other. Once she discovered that Faith and Ellie were one and the same, she had looked him up while in Sunnydale. He's married now, with 3 kids, Carter continued while Faith listened quietly. He works at an accounting firm in Colorado Springs. If you want to meet him, I could, try to get in touch. He doesn't know that what happened to me after I was born? You mean that you died? Carter asked gently. Faith nodded. No, I never told him, Carter admitted as Faith continued listening. I never even told Mark or Dad that you died. They don't know about you. And I know it sounds selfish, but I wanted you all to myself. Faith blushed as she looked at the Major before lowering her gaze to the bedsheet again. The Slayer felt special in front of this woman. It was never a feeling she had experienced with Sabrina Lehane. That feeling was different, Faith thought as memories surfaced of shouting at a dead drunk Sabrina to wake up before any of her special friends tried to do anything to her. Sometimes they succeeded. To her, I was the special cash cow. It's not selfish, Faith whispered as she wiped her nose and looked back into the Major's blue eyes. And I don't think I want to meet him. He's a good man, though, Carter remarked with a smile. He freaked out when he found out I was pregnant with you, and, well, I guess it was hard for him to imagine being a father at that age. After I went to the academy, we just lost touch with each other. I guess it started before that, though. But I can tell he's happy now. He's been married for 10 years, according to Facebook. How about your brother? I mean, he's living in San Diego with his wife and 2 kids, Carter replied, drawing a small smile from Faith. Oh, he'll have a few things to say to me about hiding you for all these years, but he'll love you. We were estranged for a few years. It's a long story. And your dad? He's a general, Carter answered, surprising Faith. He's actually on assignment right now. And no, I can't tell you what it is. Not yet. The Major caught the confused look on Faith's face before explaining that there were some things he simply could not tell her. At least not yet. That doesn't change anything about my feelings for you, Carter assured her as she gently caressed Faith's cheek. Ellie, I know this is a very difficult thing to ask, but I need you to trust me. There are things we do here that are classified, and I can't tell you what I do with satellites or what your granddad does. All I can tell you is that he's very far away on assignment, and once I've worked on getting you clearance, I think Dad's going to be coming back by then. Alright, Faith murmured with a nod. The Slayer surprised herself. She had always been cautious about trusting people, yet there was a feeling deep in her gut telling her to listen to what her mother was saying, that Carter was telling her the truth. Once we've cleared up everything and made sure the council never comes after you again, Carter continued, then we'll deal with what? Faith prompted as Carter gazed at her with a smile. I still can't believe it's you, Ellie. Carter laughed softly before kissing Faith's cheeks and forehead, then pulling her into another hug. I can't believe it. Faith could only smile as she rested her head against the Major's shoulder, wrapping her arms tightly around the Air Force officer's back. Then she said the one word she had never thought she would say, at least not without vomiting. Mom. Ellie, the Major whispered as she rubbed the Slayer's back once more before slowly pulling away. You're going to live with me. I'm not taking no for an answer. Is that clear? Yeah, Faith replied, wiping her eyes again before letting out a laugh. In the meantime, the Major said, until we've settled everything, you're going to be staying here on base. And don't worry, as long as you're here, I'll be staying on base as well. There'll be a guard posted outside your door 24/7. I know you can take care of yourself, but for right now, let me take care of you. Faith could only nod as her mother explained that the guard would have orders to shoot on sight anyone who wasn't herself or selected personnel from the base. Once we've talked to someone at the council, the Major continued, as she held tightly to both of Faith's hands. I I need to know everything that happened to you in Sunnydale. I know it's difficult, and I know Buffy and Giles' side of the story. I even talked to Tara, and she told me that you never meant to hurt her on purpose, that you were desperate to leave the hospital and the city. Is she all right? Faith asked. Tara, I mean. Yeah, she replied softly. She's doing all right. But, Ellie, my superiors and I need to know your side of things. I promise you, that's the only way we can help you with these charges from the Sunnydale Police Department. I, Faith trailed off as the Major smiled and kissed the palms of both her hands before clasping them gently in her own. I'll be by your side, Major Carter assured her. You're my daughter, and I'll be by your side all the way. I promise you. Who will be there? Faith asked as she looked into her mother's eyes. I mean, when I talk about it, who will be there? I'll be there, the Major answered. So will General Hammond. There'll probably be someone from the Pentagon coming in. He'll be there for your clearance and to help with any legal options. But no matter what happens, you're a minor, and I'll protect you. I promise. Faith nodded before they both heard a knock at the door. The Major wiped her eyes, and Faith did the same before asking who it was. It's us, Sam, Dr. Frasier called from the other side. They brought dinner, the Major told Faith as she turned toward her. You okay with meeting them properly? Yeah, Faith replied with a nod. Carter properly introduced Faith to Cassie as her daughter, while Daniel closed the door behind him. Cassie looked excited and immediately seemed to have plenty of questions, but Frasier quickly told her to calm down and give Faith some space. After they put the food away, Daniel and Frasier apologized to Faith for hiding the truth from her. They confirmed what Carter had said earlier. They had felt it was best for Carter herself to reveal the truth about their relationship. While Daniel carried the pizza box over to the rolling table at the foot of the bed, Frasier handed a smaller box to Carter and quietly told her to open it later. He then explained that Teal'c had felt it would be inappropriate for him to come into the room to eat, since Faith would likely feel uncomfortable because she could sense his Goa'uld symbiote. I'll go talk to him later tonight, Carter replied, and Frasier nodded. A moment later, Daniel stepped over and handed a slice of pizza to Carter. The blonde looked up at him. Any news on Colonel O'Neill? She asked. Nothing, Daniel replied. I tried calling him, but I've left messages asking him to call me back. But so far, nothing, Carter finished with a nod. Yeah, Daniel confirmed. About 30 minutes later, Daniel started to yawn, and Cassie soon followed suit. Frasier informed them that visiting hours were over, and that it was time to head home. Mom, Cassie pouted. Cassandra Frasier, Frasier warned in a mock stern voice, one eyebrow raised. Move it. Fine, Cassie sighed dramatically before rolling her eyes at Faith. The Slayer smiled faintly when Cassie added, but I get to come by tomorrow and hang out with Ellie. If she's alright with that, Frasier answered. She still needs her rest to fully recover. I'm alright with it, Faith assured her as she looked at Cassie and smiled. Yeah, I'm alright with it. A smirk tugged at her lips. We still have that round of chess to finish, the one where I was winning. Again? Cassie nodded before sticking her tongue out at Faith. Daniel, Frasier, and Cassie then left the room, leaving Faith and Carter alone. The Air Force officer closed the door behind her and smiled at Faith before moving toward the small box sitting on the table. Picking it up, she handed it to a surprised Faith. She opened the lid, looked inside, then lifted her head in surprise before laughing softly. Looking back down at the box, Faith carefully took out the vanilla frosted cupcake covered in multicolored sprinkles. Carter then reached into the box after telling the Slayer to hold on for a few seconds. She pulled out a single candle and slowly pushed it into the frosting before slipping her hands into her pockets. Nuts, Carter muttered, patting her pockets. I forgot my lighter. It's in my lap. No. Faith stared at her mother as she started to turn away. This is perfect. I can get a lighter, Carter insisted eagerly. I'm sure one of the guards. Please stay, Faith whispered. Carter smiled and sat down on the bed beside her. A second later, her eyes suddenly widened and she hurried into the attached restroom. Faith watched as Carter opened the medicine cabinet above the sink. Carter smiled brightly when she pulled out a small box of matches. Forgot we have these in the VIP rooms, Carter whispered as she hurried back and sat beside Faith, who was holding up the cupcake with the candle still inside. Faith watched with a small smile as Carter lit a match and carefully touched the flame to the candle wick. After blowing out the match, Carter looked at her warmly. Make a wish. I wish. You can't say it out loud, Carter interrupted, laughing softly as Faith chuckled. She gently wrapped an arm around Faith's shoulders. Or else it won't come true. I wish this isn't a dream, Faith thought to herself as she closed her eyes. That when I open my eyes again, she'll still be here with me, and I won't wake up in a cell at council headquarters, or somewhere in a ditch, or with some strange guy, or. Yeah, I don't want this to be a dream. When Faith opened her eyes again, relief spread across her face as Carter leaned over and kissed the top of her head. Faith smiled softly, leaned forward, and blew out the candle. To be continued.